This is Education Sector Television International, ESTV, and the program is One Citizen of Greater Values. Good morning to you all. This morning, I have beside me an icon, a veteran broadcaster who has seen it all. I am referring to the very first Director-General, Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, a past president and fellow, Nigerian Society of Engineers and Nigerian Academy of Engineers, and also a fellow of the Pan-African University. My guest this morning is Engineer Vincent Maduka, OFR. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, madam.
I feel honored to sit beside you.
Honor is mine.
Thank you very much for the privilege. So how do we go? Sir, you were part of the growth of the broadcasting media in Nigeria. Let's share your experience.
Well, when I entered broadcasting, it was entirely public service, which really means good service, service in the interest of the public, which was owned by the public sector of the economy, and they were political and partisan, unfortunately. And so my earliest experience in broadcast, I was an engineer, therefore I was considerably insulated from the issues of the day, the arguments and the quarrels and the politics and the partisanship. I was relatively insulated from all those. I say relatively because they poison the environment in which you are working, and you can't say, well, I'm an engineer. I don't care, I can't be bothered. Because you have to care, it bothers you. But that was my initiation into broadcasting. I came out of university, worked in British telecoms industry. At that time, they were in telephony and radio. And I spent 2 years apprenticeship there before returning to Nigeria to join the Western Nigeria Television Service, first in Africa. And we're very proud of that because we were the groundbreakers, we were the pioneers on the continent. Most of our entertainment programs, if not all, were imported, and the market was available: American films, British comedies and satires, then news films supplied by such international agencies as Reuters, ITN, I think, or anyway, these were independent suppliers of news films. So that was where we broadcast most of our moving picture in the news. We made some footage ourselves for our news, entirely negative film, in the sense that if you are projecting them on the wall, for instance, the lighter portions will be darker and the darker portions will be lighter. That's what I mean by negative. We didn't have positive film facilities on the ground, but the electronic equipment we use for broadcasting would convert negative film to positive. So people at home saw it as positive. So from the technical point of view, we were also run mostly by expatriates. They were the trainers and the operators of the system when it first started. And I'm talking of 1961 now. Although the BNTV came in 1959, and I joined in 1961 when I returned from the UK. Most films that you watched in the evenings were imported. Children's programs, adult programs. Later on, the station brought little kids together in kind of programs you call Evening with Auntie, or just playing and singing and generally entertaining themselves in the studio. The entertainment films were entirely imported in the first 4 or 5 years I can think of now. But progressively, we began to have our own discussion programs. Uh, Again, those are sitting down programs, not action programs. We began to show local musicians, children in choirs, uh, things like half an hour with mothers or with women's half hour, I think it's called. And there you demonstrated some cooking, fashion, generally homestead matters. We began to experiment with drama, often plays written for stage, and we tried to act them out in the studio. The studio was not built for drama. The production itself was not a television or a movie type of production. They were largely stage productions. But the public, from our surveys, formal and informal, enjoyed it. But clearly from the surveys that we did, they liked the foreign programs better in the areas of entertainment. And progressively, we began to get more adept with our productions. And just to shorten the long story, by 78 onwards, when NTA was created, we began to pull resources together from all over the country, because NTA was initially the amalgamation of all the state-owned stations, and then we began to do more adventurous productions. And we in television don't say it often enough, but we really are the parents, we are the founders of Nigeria's Nollywood industry, because it was our own contractors, along with some of our own staff, who then went out to create independent films, which eventually have been nicknamed Nollywood. In fact, we ran the first production training course at NTA. I know a number of filmmakers today either studied film production abroad before coming back here, but the basic, the earliest productions for the cinema in Nigeria came from people that were trained in NTA for film production. And so that's the impact the Nigerian television industry and media have had on the very successful and acclaimed Nigerian film industry in Hollywood.
Thank you, sir. Having listened to the way the broadcast media grew up, I can still see that it was dominated by foreign programs and foreign films, etc., foreign activities on our local screen. Does it mean our local talents were not coming up there, or they were not encouraged by the broadcast media to participate?
Well, first of all, there wasn't a big enough industry to sustain professionalism. And by professionalism, I mean you're doing something that meets certain standards, but not only that, you are making a living out of it. Practically all the people who were acting in my first maybe 10 years, 15 years in television were amateurs. They were bankers, they were teachers, they did other jobs. So you know, the filmmaking was not an industry. I because there were part-timers who just came along, did one thing or the other, and went off minding their own careers.
So they were not fully into the career.
No. They were doing some other things. I mean, you take Village Headmaster, which was one of the most popular series that we were running on Nigerian television. As Director-General, I had given them a deadline by which they must go outdoor. Village Headmaster was acted out in the studio. You had shots of people in the studio. You set up the studio like a palace, and then people walk in and prostrated and made conversations and walked out almost like on stage. But this was cramped. This was not exploring the full capability of film. I mean, film, you can walk down the road and shout at somebody. You can't do that in the discussion studio, because studio, the largest TV studio, was really for discussion programs when we started, and not for drama, not even for a choir, let alone a drama production.
Yes, so let's look at the commitment of the local talents there. Were they paid anything? Was there any sponsor?
They were dramatists. I mean, they were amateur dramatists.
So it was just like a passion going for free.
Well, they got small allowance. I can't tell you how much now. But I don't think somebody who came to the studio to discuss a program got 5 naira.
So not good
so
enough to
5 cents.
To sustain them.
No way, no, nobody.
Okay.
Nobody. The first time people could live on what they earned from television was when we started a series called Cockcrow at Dawn.
Okay.
Cockcrow at Dawn was shot on location in the plateau, and people were paid. The artist fee was reasonable enough to sustain them.
Okay. Were they able to get a sponsor for Cockcrow at Dawn?
Yes.
Okay, so it was going on.
That was the reason why you could pay them a good, what I call, allowance or wage.
Okay.
But every one of them, well, I can't speak too strongly on that, had another job. All right. When I say I can't speak strongly now, but that was that. When they went on location, they were shooting for 2 weeks non-stop. Now, if you had another job, a paid job, you couldn't go away like that continuously. And this was a series that ran for years.
So was there any particular effort you put in place to get these our local artists paid or encouraged to keep to the career?
Yes, the special effort was in securing a good sponsorship sufficient to cover our own costs, which really included the fees for the artists, the actors and the actresses. I mean, as I said, people were on location for 2-3 weeks at a time in the Jos Plateau. And there's no way somebody from the University of Ibadan or some school of theatre, product of that school of theatre, or somebody who was a bank clerk, you take 2 weeks, not even 2 weeks, because when you finished one series, you practically started the next series immediately. But when you went on location, you have to stay on for about 2 weeks, because it was not like a studio run. You were shooting scenes which we are going to edit later. I suppose you can come along, shoot your own bit and go away, or rather be within your own cut and then go away. But somebody else has to be available for you to act alongside them. And so really when you went on location, you just went on location. That was what.
So you are just on your own?
You're on your own there. And what you lived on was what you earned. I think they were fed, they were definitely housed, but they had to be paid a decent fee as well. And I think that was the first time we really paid living allowances or living wages for actors and actresses.
Okay. It was on the program Kokura.
Kokradon, I think that was our first time. We had village headmaster, as I said. I was going to tell the story about village headmaster and attempt to.
Yes, I was coming to that to ask you that. What are the other notable programs
Yes.
that we had then?
Yes.
Okay.
Village headmaster
Okay.
was longer and better known at that time. And as I said, it was acted out in the studio. And the studio really was barely bigger than this sitting room. So you couldn't put more than 2 sets there. And a set is a scene that represents a particular, a set is an arrangement in the studio with furniture and things to represent a particular scene in the play. Now, we didn't even have editing facilities. Things went out live. Later on, we had a video tape recording. So when we had video tape recording, you could use the same set more or less and rearrange it, shoot another scene, and so on, and then go and edit and put them together later. But it was still very restrictive of movement. And you're talking of a village. You'll be able to see people marching down the road and shouting at one another and greeting and what have you. And we couldn't do that. But so I then gave a ruling at one stage and said, hey, after a certain date, this particular drama will be shot outdoors on location. By that time, we had some experience. As I said, we had experience on Cockroach at Dawn. I didn't mention another soap opera that we had, a soap, Mirror in the Sun.
Okay.
Mirror in the Sun was a gossip neighborhood kind of drama series. And it was all acted on location. We rented some premises in any neighborhood and we shot freely there. In those days, the video camera, mobile video camera was available for years. Your cameras were big things. It has half the size of this settee. That was the size of the TV camera. Yes. So it was on heavy wheels. In fact, there was somebody pushing the wheel, and as seen from the cameraman himself. So as those things technologically were being freed up for flexibility, we too were exploiting the facilities. So we had Mirror in the Sun, which was shot completely outside. And by this time, people were beginning to really like our own productions better than the imports. And we actually went out of our way to imitate, I won't say copy, excuse me, imitate some of the things that our viewers liked. And we then designed something similar in concept, but the story and the acting and everything was different.
Was there any local dialect program?
There were.
Okay.
And they were, I mean, you had a Hausa drama series, you had a series. I started my career in Ibadan, and I would say something like 80% of the drama we had when I was at Ibadan was in Yoruba language. But remarkably, the western region, Yoruba land, had professional dramatists, Ogunde, traveling theatre. They moved from town to town to entertain people. So we had Ogunde, we had Alawada, Baba Salah, who was a comedian. But the story of Baba Salah is that he was not, he didn't start out as, of course, nobody out of this room, except the later day performers, were television products. Baba Salah was an amateur entertainer. He went to weddings, functions like public ones, where he was hired to entertain. And in Yoruba, Baba Salah was his nickname, but he was Alawada. Alawada means the man who tells jokes, a joker. In fact, it's almost
like a comedian of today.
Comedian today is very much more respectable. Comedian today gets a lot of money.
Yes.
He charges #1,000,000 for a night.
Even more than that.
Exactly. Now, Alawada means clown. It didn't carry respect. But since we are on that, this Baba Salah, he competed at WNTV in, I don't know whether it was the 10th anniversary of WNTV, that the station organized a competition, which was sponsored by German Airlines. I forget his name, but it's a German airline. And the winner of the competition will given a trip to Germany, where that winner will also entertain for a week or two. But Baba Salah was the winner.
Wow.
And the runner-up was a musician.
Okay.
So the runner-up was given the German Lufthansa.
Why?
Because Baba Salah's entertainment would be worthless in Germany.
Why?
It was mostly in Yoruba
Okay.
and Pidgin.
Okay.
And those
And the audience
languages
were not there.
they will not pass in England, in Germany.
Okay.
So the musician who was runner-up was given the prize, and Baba Salah was given a contract to run comedy on WNTV for a quarter. That means for 3 months.
To compensate him.
Compensation.
Does that bring any change to the local industry?
Total.
Totally. Let's hear the experience.
He was an amateur.
Yes.
He was a sanitary inspector. That is, those people who went checking houses.
The wole woles.
Wole. Checking how they were not liked at all, because they were like policemen who inspected your premises and had you arrested if the place was dirty.
Yes.
And was likely to carry water to breed mosquitoes and
Yes,
malaria.
sir. Yes, sir.
So they were not liked.
It's getting interesting.
And he won the comedy show
For 3 months
3 months for a start.
on WNTV.
WNTV. Before the end of the 3 months, we signed him on for radio, because WNTV also had a radio sister station,
Okay.
WNBS.
Okay.
Now, by the end of his first 3 months, we began to repeat every episode of his during the week one more time.
Now a clown became a figure.
Just to sideline, especially as this week was the celebration of Chief Obafemi Awolowo.
Okay.
It's referred to as the sage. Very severe man, and a highly respected and notable leader in Nigeria. I was told by one of his children that on Wednesday night, when Baba Salah was showing, his father didn't receive visitors.
Everybody shifted
What
to
Baba
Baba Salah's stage.
So let no visitor come with our family, or politician, or social. So that's how popular Baba Salah became. Now,
So the position of sponsorship and support means a lot to the media industry. From this story of Baba Salah and the prize he won, the contract he was given, means a lot of changes to the media industry in those days.
Baba Salah, I can't tell you who the sponsors were on WNTV. It was popular, it was sponsored. As I said, he went on from having one TV show a week to having that show repeated, recorded and repeated. One radio show repeated, recorded and repeated.
After the event that got him the prize and
Yes.
the contract.
Yes.
So sponsorship means a lot.
He went on for about 10 years.
Like that.
On television. He set up his own company. He had a gramophone record label. I don't know what you call it, whatever. So he himself became an entrepreneur. He had a record label where he brought other artists, recorded them and sold their records. He set up a nightclub in his hometown, Malaysia. Now, I don't know how many years after, my office as general manager at Ibadan was on the first floor. Babasala said he wanted to see me. They brought him to the first floor. And after he greeted me, clowning and so on, he said I should come down with him. He wanted to show me something downstairs.
Okay.
Followed him.
Okay.
Went down. No, he told me. He said he wanted me to wash his car.
Wow.
Yes. As a sanitary inspector, he probably, I can't swear, probably had a bicycle. And he rode to work and back. Took me downstairs, parked there with a Mercedes Benz.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
He said I should come and wash his car. He didn't tell me what car. When I got downstairs, it was a Mercedes Benz. So he had moved from
a clown, to a figure,
from
personality figure.
So that's one of the claims we make. What television in Nigeria has grown an industry.
Okay, sir. That brings me to my next question. Let's compare the broadcasting media and the different features that goes along with it today with what we used to have in those days. What are the major changes that you've seen?
Well, first of all, now there is competition.
Okay.
In the days of WNTV, most of the days of WNTV and NTA, stations were monopolies. You were the only television station in your area. You were really not competing with anybody except yourself. So you set your own standards. You noted how popular you were, and you tried to meet the tastes and the demands of your public. But you were a monopoly. Today you are competing with somebody else. I don't know how many stations are
from the pop, state, federal, private sector, so many of it.
Cable. So it's a much harder job to get around a TV station.
Okay.
Because if you have no viewers, or viewers don't like you, the sponsors and the advertisers will not come to you.
So what does that mean to the socio-economic development of Nigeria?
It means that broadcasting is more competitive in the sense that it has to find out what the people want and give it to them to the extent that it's lawful and is beneficial. So you can't just throw out anything and say, they have no choice anyway, they don't like it, what can they do? I mean, nobody does that, but your attitudes may derive from that. But, since there's nowhere else to go, they're the only station they can watch.
And the data are there to view to see the viewers.
Yes. So now it's highly competitive. I don't know the extent to which they do any surveys, to go the extent to which they are creative, in the sense of moving from your old position to a newer position so as to continue to prosper.
Okay.
Rather than lying back and saying that you are quite happy. I mean, if you are quite happy, fair enough. But it's very competitive these days. And no station can afford to be complacent.
Okay. So, my next question will have to do with comparing the military period with the civilian period of government. You were both an employee to both of them. You worked under the civilian, you worked under the military regime. What is the takeaway to the media on this?
Well, let me talk about television.
Okay.
Because one was television is different from print. Of course, I mean, it's no brainer if I say so. The print media in Nigeria was independent, almost entirely owned by private persons. And by and large, that's still the position today. Television in my time was owned entirely by government. So it was it's an apt question as to the relationship of television with the military administration as compared to civilian administration. Remarkably, I had more comfort with the military than with politicians.
With the military than
I
the
had more
politicians.
comfort.
Let's get to know why.
All right. When I was in WNTV at Ibadan, I was not general manager. I was not chief executive. So I was slightly removed from the real shenanigans going on. But the politicians were very sensitive to anything you said on air, anything they heard on air. Very sensitive, right? They will telephone you and say, "Oh, in fact, the way somebody was speaking." When I had a reporter, a first-class reporter, a lady, who reported a case in court where the federal government lost the case. And that evening, the minister, the judge, telephoned me to say that the lady was showing some glee when she was reporting that story, as if she was enjoying the story that the federal government lost. I should remove her immediately from reporting news.
And what was your reaction?
I said sorry. I will have our supervisors go through and check whether she had breached any of our guidelines. Then I came back and said sorry. I can't remove her because, as far as we are concerned, she did a good job. And my minister, it was really a special advisor. We had no minister, the person supervising NTA. Then took the girl behind my back and dragged her to the Attorney-General of the Federation.
On what parameter?
Power and abuse of power.
So, as the DG of that particular station,
Yes.
what were you able to do?
I didn't know.
Okay, you didn't get to know.
The young woman came back to report to me,
Okay.
dragged her to the Attorney General because it was the federal government that lost the case. The Attorney General said he didn't. I don't think he saw the film first time. So they showed him the coverage. I said, "It's a good job. I think you did a good job. Are you a lawyer?" Asking the reporter. And the reporter said, "No, she's not a lawyer. She's a journalist." And she was reporting. She can get a law assignment, medical assignment, report or whatever.
She has been trained to do that.
Yes. And the Attorney General said, "I think you did a very good job. I would like to sponsor you to go and study law because I think you make a good lawyer."
Wow.
Yes. And the lady said, "Thank you very much, sir. I'm very happy being a journalist. I don't want to be a lawyer." And she gave me that report in writing because I wasn't there.
And how did you feel about this?
I'm very, very proud because it showed that even a non-lawyer journalist working for us can be appreciated by a very senior lawyer, an SAM, an Attorney General for that matter, and that quietened the minister. That is my supervisor who wanted us to remove the young lady. So, well, so that was even asking me to remove someone. I was also asked to remove a general manager in Enugu,
Still under the civilian
civilian.
regime.
I never had that from the military. And I removed him because the pressure from the politicians there was severe.
Why did you have a change of mind this time around? To remove him?
I was summoned before the vice president of the council
The vice president.
and ordered to remove.
So at this point,
Now I give about 1 hour. And
so
at
at
the
this
end-
point, you don't have any choice. You just have to obey.
No, he told me, he said, Vincent, you're on your own. Which means your back is not covered. I don't have to have my back covered in an honest, straightforward system. But we're not talking about me now. Anyway, so I had to remove him. I removed the general manager from the law because a new minister, a new governor there said he has to go. He said this state cannot contain the two of us. Well, military. I had to remove the general manager before, also in a state, we call it Benue State, because a new governor, a new military governor, arrived there, and the story is more complicated. But he insisted that that general manager must be removed.
So the seat of power at a particular time has the final say on the government media.
I'm afraid so. Because first, we are given an annual subvention. Generally, we tried to make as much money as possible from advertising. We were free to make as much money as we like from advertising. The consumer market in Nigeria was low at this time. I'm trying to think now if I can remember a figure for airtime. Maybe, I don't know, maybe 5. Let me not state, but we charge for a sport advertisement. I have it somewhere in my book, and I'll give you a copy of the book, which was by, it's not an autobiography, but it was a memoir of my career in the media. And it was, the amount of money we were making was not enough to sustain television. But when I was at Ibadan, we ran a radio station, a radio broadcasting organization, side-by-side television organization. And the radio was subsidizing television when I was chief executive at Ibadan. We made enough money and more on radio to pay for television costs. And when the federal government took over all television stations, as I put in that book, another year or two, and television also would have started to cover its entire costs and be independent of any subsidy from government. So, from the point of view of small markets and small stations, by 1978, when I left the regional station, we were about to break even on television. We were making a surplus on radio. The radio was subsidizing television. Yes. So the market was still quite small and not enough to sustain the.
What was the trick on the radio side that was generating money that the television could not fix?
Two things. One, radio is cheap to run.
Okay.
Radio is cheap to run. Two, radio has a large penetration. All right, you had practically every home was accessible to radio, unlike television, which only the middle class, even at that time, could afford. I mean, you have to have a refrigerator before you bought yourself a TV set. And so we're using the refrigerator to measure the penetration of our TV sets. I mean, if we did a survey with a shop and they sold so many so many fridges, we'll estimate how many TV sets would have been sold by the same stage, a shop or similar shop or whatever. But the penetration of TV depended on the earning capacity, which is everywhere. But radio, as you can tell, farmers and radio sets. So little home domestic materials, detergents, glue, what else, were heavily advertised on radio. And so we were making money from radio, enough to pay for radio service entirely and to subsidize television.
Thank you very much, sir. So let me put this to you. If you are asked to address a group of students studying broadcast journalism, what are the 5 key points that you would like to tell them?
One, that it was a privileged job to be addressing millions of people simultaneously. 2, that mass of people contained all demographics, different languages in the Nigerian context. Because if you are local, even so, different levels of education, different levels of income, and different tastes. And you have to take all that into account. 3, people tend to take what you say as gospel truth. And therefore, you must show what you're saying. And in the Nigerian context, English is a foreign language, but it's an official language, and therefore you must master it. I won't hire you if you're not comfortable with English language. And I wouldn't, in those days, hire you if you're not comfortable with at least 2 Nigerian languages in addition to English. Because you're going to be calling people's names on air. And when somebody, if you say a word in English or in Yoruba, for instance, and somebody said you are wrong, you say, no, I heard it from the NTA. So you must be an authority as a broadcaster on whatever you're handling. Therefore, you must work at it. You can't just say, oh, dress nicely, appear, and whatever you say will pass, because it should not pass. So, if you are trained as a journalist and you are given an assignment to cover the courts, you are a master of what courts behavior. What goes on there. And don't bluff your way and think that because you are privileged to be addressing all these people, you can take it or leave it, whatever you do.
The 4th one. You've mentioned 3.
Must look proper if it's television. And proper means what is valued, not over dressed and not giving offense either. There are some people who are upset with men dressing their hair like women, so don't do it. Women who cover less than they should do in the respective home and environment must go by those rules. So your appearance, your command of whichever language you're speaking, your knowledge of the subject.
And the last one.
You are an example to someone. I don't know if there's a particular one, but broadcasting is serious business. Unfortunately, a lot of people think it is glamour show. The glamour is the coating Because if you are not glamorous to an extent, and you are not nice to an extent, you are not paying me to sit and watch you or listen to you. You are not paying me. I will walk away. I will go to the next station these days, or the other station. So you must get to hold my attention. And holding my attention is what you say, how you say it, how you look. And if you are doing a teenage show or whatever, then don't look like an old madam either, because they won't like your show. So you must be conscious of your audience and be able to interact with them, even though you cannot hear them. But you must be able to take into account their attention and their feelings. Really, the teacher's job is hard. Properly, the broadcaster's job should be harder, because a teacher can adjust himself to the reactions of the students. I mean, they are either adults at tertiary level or teenagers in school. But to be an effective teacher, to communicate effectively, you must be able to adjust. You said I was a fellow when you were introducing me, a fellow of the Pan Atlantic University.
Yes.
Well, I was a teacher.
Okay.
I was not a professor, and I was not a career lecturer. And the position I held, I performed in, was that of a fellow. I reckon fellows are junior professors, non-professor, professor, whatever.
Like a TOT, teachers of trainers, or trainers of teachers.
No, not necessarily. I was teaching classes.
Okay, so directly
direct lecturing, yes, and examining them.
Okay.
Yes, but my position was not that of a lecturer, but that's a career.
Okay.
All right, and that's my interpretation. I was not a professor, because you have to get to be a professor through being
going through the cadre.
So I was a fellow. I had something to impart. I was examining for postgraduate students only, because the university at that time was teaching, was running courses in mass communication. In fact, I call it media and communication, because communication goes beyond media. There's interpersonal communication, there is leadership communication, business communication, and so on. So I taught leadership, creativity, media, management, and so on.
So your word of experience was useful to them.
It was just that.
Okay. So, yes, let me ask my last question. I want you to advise that set of teachers that handles primary school students, the set of teachers that receive students into primary one afresh to lay their foundation stone. What do you have to tell them?
First, I have to be knowledgeable in teaching and teaching. Yesterday I was at a party. Forgive me if I the very successful professional. And I said, I taught you in Form 3. When I finished high school certificate, I had some 9 months before entering university. So I was teaching in the secondary school. I said, I taught you chemistry. He said, no. He said, yes. But he was in Form 5 when I was teaching him. I thought he was in Form 3. I met him.
Okay.
But I couldn't remember. He said, you taught me, I was in Form 5. I said, did I? Yeah, I taught a Form 5 student. So I was teaching that strictly chemistry, because I just was graduating, not a degree, but high school certificate in chemistry, physics, and mathematics. And the schools were not very well equipped in those days, and they were happy to have people that qualification like I had come and teach their students. But we teach chemistry, but I can't teach primary school kids, because I've come to know that you have to have knowledge of some psychology. I'm not surprised. The parent needs psychology to manage their kids. So you just challenge them to teach primary one teachers or to advise primary one teachers. It's not enough to be a teacher, from what I gather. You have to be trained as a teacher of infants, a teacher of junior school kids. Because managing human beings at every level is a skill, and skills have to be taught and acquired. So at the Pan Atlantic University, I was teaching leadership skills. And leadership skills in the media, which is a business. But leadership skills in a classroom, incidentally, is what they didn't even teach me. And yet I was teaching graduates, because these were MSc students. So I've come to learn that you need to know your pupils and their psychology in order to be able to influence them adequately. So I will tell a primary school teacher to go and study how to teach primary school kids, because it's a separate skill from teaching university graduates, undergraduates, or even secondary school kids.
At this point, Engineer Vincent Maduka, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
I do appreciate your time. I feel comfortable with all that you said. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, sir.